Buffy has left Colorado Springs and made her way back to Sunnydale, lying to Willow about her need to travel. Life goes on for Willow and her team, from freeing a friend to a death in the family. Welcome to TH Stories 80. Now let's dive into chapters 16 and 17 of An Extraordinary Journey. Willow's apartment, 2 hours after Buffy left. It had been a few hours since Buffy left Colorado Springs to return to Sunnydale. Her visit stirred memories of happier times for Willow, memories of the life she had known so well in Sunnydale. The visit made her feel a pang of homesickness and wonder what her life might have been like if she had stayed. But she quickly brushed those thoughts aside, choosing instead to focus on the here and now. She knew in her heart that Sunnydale and her friends, Buffy, Xander, and the others, would always be there, ready to welcome her back with open arms whenever she visited. In the present, her responsibilities and relationships at the SGC, especially with the members of SG-1, helped buffer the homesickness she would be feeling at times. As she did most nights after waking up from her near-death experience and the loss of her magic, Willow prepared to meditate before going to bed. Meditation had been a great help in getting her empathic abilities under control. It was also a good way for her to slowly get over not being able to feel magic, and it has been successful for the most part. Yet, it did not mean she wouldn't try creating simple balls of light, even if she was unsuccessful. Surveillance Stakeout, home of Daniel Jackson, 8:30 p.m. "Hey Daniel, are you asleep yet?" asked Colonel O'Neill over the radio. "No," replied Daniel sarcastically as Willow and Major Carter tried to stifle their laughter inside the surveillance van parked across the street from his house. SG-1 was conducting a stakeout due to suspected involvement by the Goa'uld known as Osiris. She had been trying to invade Daniel's dreams so he could help her translate a tablet written in Ancient, one that might contain information leading to the Lost City. The plan was to capture Osiris, currently inhabiting the body of Sarah Gardner after the tablet had been translated. Major Carter had already set up a jamming device to prevent Osiris from beaming out of the house. Colonel O'Neill and Teal'c were already somewhere in Daniel's home, hidden away. So, once Osiris arrived and had completed her task with Daniel, Colonel O'Neill and Teal'c would stealthily move in and capture her. At least that was the plan. Carter and Willow would remain in the van as backup while the two men got into position for a long wait. Meanwhile, in the van, Willow monitored the feeds, keeping an eye out for anything suspicious, especially the local police or neighborhood watch. Suddenly, a strange sensation came over her. A creeping sense of being watched raised goosebumps on her arms. "Major, is there any chance Osiris knows we're here? Do you think she might have backup?" Willow asked, while at the same time wondering if this was maybe a sign her magic was returning, or her empathic abilities warning her about some possible danger. This hadn't happened earlier. "I don't think so. Everything suggests she's operating alone," Major Carter replied, glancing at the video feed. She then turned towards Willow. Why?" "Maybe it's nothing, but I can't shake this really strong feeling that we are being watched," said Willow. "A feeling?" Carter asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah, just a feeling. Mind if I check the immediate area?" asked Willow. "I don't think that's necessary. Aside from the HTC, no one else knows we're out here." "Don't worry about it," said Carter, who then added, "And if someone is watching us, we don't want to tip them off just yet." "Okay, so how's it going with Pete?" Willow asked a little awkwardly as she leaned back on her chair. "Sorry if that's too personal. Sometimes I just ask things without thinking." "It's alright," Carter said with a small smile. "It's nice having another girl on the team. Gives me a chance for some well-deserved chit-chat without the menfolk." As for Pete, things are going okay. He's not thrilled that I can't tell him what I actually do, since he doesn't have clearance, but yeah, it's definitely hum-worthy. Hum-worthy? Asked Willow. Yep, that's when you know you've got something good going. You hum a tune. Carter smiled at the memory of herself humming in the SGC elevator a couple of days ago. Oh, that hum-worthy, Willow said with a grin, recalling things with Oz before it went all wrong. So, do you think he could handle the truth about aliens and the other threats this planet faces? I honestly don't know. I'd like to think he could, Carter replied. How about you? Think your boyfriend could handle it? Well, I don't have a boyfriend right now, but I know my friends wouldn't be too fond of the military, Willow said. She pressed her lips together before adding, if they found out about the Stargate, they'd probably be pissed that I was hiding the truth about aliens and everything. Why don't they like the military? Carter asked, turning from the monitors to face Willow. Well, from what I've been told, the military, specifically the army, was involved in some shady experiments in Sunnydale. They were trying to create hybrids between people and other unknown things, Willow said, clearly hesitant. She then calmed herself. Enough time had passed between now and the first time they met. What kind of hybrids? Carter asked, intrigued. Well, keep an open mind, Major. Hybrids between humans and demons, Willow admitted, watching Carter closely for a reaction. Are you sure it was the military? Carter asked, her brow furrowed. I'm sorry, but a human and demon hybrid. Is that even possible? That's what I thought at first too, but I trust my sources. It took a lot just to take one of them down, said Willow. Anyway, it's not the first time the military has done secret stuff. I mean, the Stargate program is confidential even within the military, so it wouldn't surprise me if whatever happened in Sunnydale was kept classified. You're right about that, Carter admitted. Still though, the whole human and demon thing? Don't worry about it, Major. Trust me, it's not as cracked as it sounds, Willow said. Then her expression changed as she glanced out the van window. Seriously though, I can't shake the feeling we're being watched. If it makes you feel better, grab the night scope and take a look. The Major pointed to one of the two darkened rear windows. Don't worry, it's one-way glass, Carter said. Willow took the night vision scope and stared out the window toward an area behind the van. Something about that direction drew her attention. She couldn't explain why. It was just a feeling. Peering carefully, she spotted someone sitting in a parked car. Major? There's someone sitting in a car across the street. Looks like he's been there for a while, judging by the food bags on the dash, Willow reported. But I can't make out the driver. Maybe he's just waiting for someone, Carter replied. Can you see his license plate? No, ma'am, said Willow. Should I go check it out? We can't risk it right now. If he's connected to Osiris, we don't want to tip him off. When we move in on Daniel's house, we'll grab him for questioning. In the meantime, keep an eye on him, said Carter. Good call though. Next time I'll pay more attention to your instincts. Surveillance takeout, home of Daniel Jackson, 7 a.m. SG-1 had visuals on both Daniel and Osiris throughout the night and into the early morning. In the early hours, Willow and Major Carter saw that Daniel was beginning to stir. He looked like he would be waking up soon. Willow, get ready. Looks like we'll be needed sooner rather than later, said Major Carter. Just as she spoke, the camera feeds showed Daniel waking and confronting Osiris. Major Carter immediately alerted Colonel O'Neill and Teal that Daniel was awake, then ordered Willow to get out of the surveillance van to provide backup. The Major exited through the front cab while Willow opened the rear doors. As she stepped out, she caught sight of someone passing by, holding a gun. Reacting quickly, Willow jumped down from the van and unholstered her Zat, aiming it at the intruder. Hold it, she commanded. The man froze and raised his hands. Put the gun down, slowly. At the sound of the Zat activating and Willow's voice, Major Carter turned around and drew her own weapon. At the same time, inside the house, Osiris had thrown Daniel to one side, and both Teal'c and O'Neill leapt to his defense. They too were thrown aside by Osiris, using the ribbon device around her hand. Osiris tried to beam out, but she did not realize there were dampeners preventing any escape. So she rushed toward the front door. In the meantime, outside Daniel's home, "Pete?" Carter said, stunned. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Pete?" Willow echoed, confused. Was he following us or spying on Major Carter? She wondered. Before anyone could respond, Osiris stepped out into the front porch and opened fire with a Goa'uld energy weapon. Willow yanked Pete down behind the van just in time. Major Carter joined them, and the two women returned fire using their Zats. However, the blue blasts harmlessly bounced off Osiris's personal shield. Even Pete's rounds were deflected. As Willow continued firing, an overwhelming sense of danger washed over her. It wasn't the usual feeling of being watched. This was something that immediate. She peeked around the van and saw Osiris aiming her weapon directly at the van's gas tank. Crap, she's targeting the tank, Willow thought. She then yelled out, "Major, take cover!" Time seemed to slow as Willow dove behind another vehicle. She saw Pete grab Major Carter and push her onto the grass behind a nearby car, just as Osiris's energy blast struck the van's gas tank. The van exploded. After the blast, all Willow could hear was a high-pitched buzzing. Her vision, however, remained clear. She saw Pete lying motionless on top of Major Carter. Looking toward Daniel's house, Willow saw Osiris stumbling back, her hand not pressing down on the button that activated her personal shield. Willow knew Osiris's shield was deactivated. Instinctively, Willow reached for her tranquilizer-loaded sidearm, ready to act, but before she could fire a dart, she saw Colonel O'Neill rush up behind Osiris and take two precise shots using his own tranquilizer-laden weapon. Osiris spun toward him in shock, and then collapsed. With Osiris unconscious on the front porch, O'Neill and Teal'c quickly tied her hands and feet. Willow turned to the smoldering remains of the van. The figures of Pete and Major Carter on the grass hadn't moved. "Major, are you all right?" Willow called as she ran toward them. As Willow reached Carter, she saw Pete still laying on top of her. Slowly, Major Carter opened her eyes and sat up as Pete rolled off her and lay on the grass. Major, can you hear me?" Willow asked, her eyes scanning the Major for injuries. Her heart sank at the sight of blood on Carter's clothes. "It's not my blood," the Major said, as if reading Willow's mind. The two women turned toward Pete, who was lying wounded and unconscious on the grass. Major Carter immediately moved to apply pressure to the wound, while Willow ran off to fetch a first aid kit from Daniel's home. To be continued. Stargate Command, few hours later. At a briefing following the capture of Osiris, Willow sat quietly, observing as the other members of SG-1 voiced their frustration over Pete's interference. "Wow, I can actually feel the anger in this room," Willow thought, glancing at the goosebumps forming on her arms. She was doing everything she could not to act out of anger. The tension radiating from Colonel O'Neill was nearly palpable, despite his attempts to mask it. "This is so weird," she added silently. "Well, at least we got Osiris, and Pete is going to be alright, even if he was slightly injured," said Carter, glancing over at Colonel O'Neill. "That's not the point, Carter," Colonel O'Neill replied, rubbing his forehead. "There was no reason for him to be there in the first place. We got lucky this time. Things could have ended badly if a civilian had been killed." His voice was calm, but the underlying anger was unmistakable. "Major Carter, do you know why he was following you?" Teal'c asked. "No, I wasn't even aware he was," she admitted. "Major, this is a serious breach of security. General Hammond said sternly. Your friend has now seen things that are highly classified. I had no choice but to escalate this incident to the President. I see. Sir, what did the President say? Carter asked. He wasn't pleased, the General replied, but he's authorized limited clearance for Pete Shanahan to be briefed about the Stargate. Limited, sir? Carter asked, eyebrows raised. Yes, you're authorized to tell him specific details about the Stargate program. What he is allowed to know is outlined in this packet. The General handed her a brown envelope. And of course, he must sign the non-disclosure forms. Yes, sir. Thank you, she said, offering a small smile. Willow glanced quickly at Colonel O'Neill, who was still visibly displeased. Lieutenant Rosenberg, General Hammond said, turning to Willow. Do you have anything you'd like to add? No, sir, Willow replied, snapping her attention back to him. Very well, you're all dismissed until tomorrow. Good work capturing the Goa'uld, the General said as he stood and returned to his office. Once he left, the team began to disperse. Major Carter headed out to see Pete, while Colonel O'Neill returned to his office to tackle paperwork. Willow decided not to bother him. She could still feel the anger radiating from him. Only Teal'c and Daniel remained in the briefing room. Willow, Daniel said, Teal'c and I are going to watch the Tok'ra remove the symbiote from Sarah. Want to come along? Sure, she said with a smile. I won't be interrupting anything? Willow, you keep forgetting you're part of SG-1 now, Daniel replied with a grin. And watching a Goa'uld extraction is basically a rite of passage. Although Daniel didn't usually wear his emotions openly, Willow could sense his excitement at the prospect of freeing his friend from Goa'uld control. She felt a similar emotion from Teal'c, despite his stoic exterior. SGC 2 weeks later, General Hammond notified all base personnel that although he was not pleased, a television crew was on the premises by order of the President. Their job was to document and interview selected base personnel, particularly SG-1 and a few other SG teams, for a documentary that would be aired if and when the Stargate program was ever declassified. Colonel O'Neill wasn't too eager about being interviewed on camera, while Daniel and Major Carter simply tolerated it. Teal'c, on the other hand, didn't care one way or another. During his interview, he barely said a word. Willow, however, had mixed feelings about sitting down with a complete stranger for a recorded interview. A part of her was excited, but she was mostly nervous. Oh, how I wish I was off-world on P3X666 with SG-13 right now, she thought to herself. But she had no choice. The documentary team specifically wanted to hear from one of the SGC's newer recruits. A few hours later, an urgent call came in from SG-13. They were under attack by Goa'uld forces and pinned down among some ruins discovered on the planet. Almost immediately, SG Units 1 and 5, along with the medical team led by Dr. Fraser, were activated. When SG-1 was called, Willow was being interviewed. She excused herself and quickly ran to the locker room to gear up. At first, she felt a wave of relief, grateful for the excuse to escape the interview. That feeling quickly turned into guilt. If SG-13 had called for backup, then something must have gone terribly wrong, and their lives were in danger. She and Major Carter suited up and ran to the gate room. On the way, they met with Colonel O'Neill and the others. At the gate room, the colonel gave his orders. Lieutenant Rosenberg and Dr. Jackson, you, along with Airmen Hodges and Kent, will accompany the medical team and work to stabilize Airman Wells. Everyone else will provide cover for SG-13. Is that clear? Yes, sir, everyone responded. All right, campers, Colonel O'Neill said, his voice firm. Let's go get our people back. And for God's sake, watch your sixes. With that, the team stepped through the shimmering blue event horizon of the wormhole. Planet designated P3X666. Once through to the other side, Willow and the rest of the teams immediately heard the distant sound of weapons fire, both Earth and Jafar in origin. As they moved for cover near the gate in case of an ambush, Willow was overwhelmed by conflicting emotions emanating from the ruins, a powerful wave of hatred, followed by one of deep desperation. Her heart pounded faster and faster, though she sensed no immediate danger nearby. "Alright, we're clear. Doc, go with your escorts and recover Airman Wells," ordered Colonel O'Neill. Willow's group peeled off to assist the injured airman, while the others moved toward the sounds of battle. As she ran, Willow silently wished her team good luck. "Willow, once we reach Wells, we'll need you and the others to cover Dr. Fraser, alright?" said Daniel. "Yes, Daniel," she replied with a nod. As they advanced toward the wounded airman, the feeling of hatred intensified. Willow realized it was emanating from the Jaffa who had pinned down SG-13 in the distance, and now the rescue party as well. When they finally reached Airman Wells, who lay on the ground with a staff blast injury, a panicked voice crackled over the radio. "Colonel O'Neill is down. He took a direct hit from a staff weapon," Carter shouted. Willow's heart froze. She glanced at Daniel and Dr. Fraser, both visibly shaken by the news. "Willow, we need to focus on Airman Wells right now. Jack will be alright," Daniel exclaimed, trying to reassure her, though fear was clear in his own eyes. Willow looked up at him, reading the same anxiety etched into his face, even as he tried to maintain a calm front. "Lieutenant," said Dr. Fraser, turning to Willow, "I need you to put pressure here." Willow followed the doctor's instructions. Eventually, they managed to stabilize Wells enough to move him. Just then, a fresh wave of hatred surged through Willow's senses, stronger and closer than before. It was coming from directly ahead at her 12 o'clock. Without hesitation, she disengaged the safety on her P90 and aimed toward the patch of trees where the presence was strongest. Before anyone could react, she opened fire at what appeared to be a distant figure. Almost immediately, the figure stood and returned fire with a staff weapon. Willow, Daniel, and the other two airmen fired back, managing to take him down, though several staff blasts streaked past them, miraculously missing. But as the figure fell, he got off one final shot. In slow motion, Willow saw the orange blast streak past her and strike Dr. Fraser in the chest. The force hurled her backward. For a moment, time stopped. All Willow could see was Janet Fraser lying motionless on the ground, a smoking hole in her chest. Slowly the sounds around her filtered back in, screaming, shouting, distant weapons fire, and Daniel frantically calling for a medic over the radio. Then something inside Willow snapped into place. She rushed to Janet's side, dropped to her knees, and placed her hands over the doctor's wound. She could feel it now, energy rushing through her bones, the skin, a caress on the back of her neck. Magic. She could feel it. She could do something now. She could help Fraser. If there was ever a time for magic, this was it. "Please work. Please heal." "Willow, what are you doing?" "Willow," Daniel shouted, watching her closely. Tuning out everything around her, Willow closed her eyes and focused every ounce of her will on healing Janet. But it wasn't enough. The magic flowing through her wasn't enough. Seconds after closing her eyes, they flew back open, tears now streaming down her cheeks. "Oh God, no," she whispered. The wound on Fraser's chest remained unchanged. "Damn it, heal, heal, heal," she screamed, hoping her hands would glow with power, from magic to stitch Fraser's wounds together. Nothing was working. She could feel it now. It didn't matter why she could. Magic had failed her. Daniel, still in shock, watched helplessly. "Please heal. Please heal. Please live." Willow choked out as she stumbled back, collapsing against a nearby tree. "I can't heal someone who's already dead. Magic's useless now." "Carter to Daniel," came Major Carter's voice over the radio. "Daniel, we need to get out now. We're being overrun. Too many Jaffa and the Al-Kesh are causing chaos. Head for the gate. We'll meet you there. I repeat, retreat." "Willow, Willow, we have to move," Daniel said, shaking her. He turned to the two airmen with them. "Get Wells on the stretcher and head to the gate, now." "Yes, Dr. Jackson," he replied, lifting Wells and moving quickly. Willow remained frozen, her mind spinning. "I can't protect them. Why can't I protect them? Oh God." She could still feel the seething hatred from the Jaffa, but now her own rage surged, primal, dangerous, and welcomed. She felt power rising through her. She thought it was magic. "Willow," Daniel said softly but firmly as he lifted Fraser's body in his arms. "We have to go." "No." The word came from Willow's mouth, but it didn't sound like her. It was cold, cruel, detached. Daniel's eyes widened. He looked at her as she stood, eyes focused on Fraser's lifeless form. Suddenly he could feel it too. A sense of desperation from the SG teams, hatred from the Jaffa, the presence of Goa'uld symbiotes, and at the center of it all was Willow, consumed by fury. She focused on the symbiotes, letting her rage guide her. Daniel watched in stunned silence. Willow's eyes dilated. Streaks of her red hair seemed to turn black, or maybe it was just a trick of the light. Then everything fell eerily silent. No weapons fire, no movement. "Daniel," came Major Carter's voice over the radio. "Something strange is happening here. Sam, something's happening here too. It's Willow. Something's wrong." "Willow?" Carter's voice was laced with concern. "Daniel, what's going on with Willow?" Before he could respond, Willow looked up from Fraser's body. Her expression was cold. She turned toward the ruins, and without hesitation imagined crushing the symbiotes inside each Jaffa. She headed toward the direction of the ruins, where the SG teams had been under fire moments ago. Daniel rushed to the ruins with Fraser's body in his arms. Once there, he saw Jaffa convulsing in agony. Turning back, he saw Willow approaching behind him, still expressionless. Nearby, Major Carter crouched beside Colonel Dixon and the unconscious Colonel O'Neill. Daniel ran to her. "Daniel, what's happening?" Carter asked, just as she spotted Willow standing out in the open. "Willow!" she yelled, but the redhead didn't respond. The Jaffa on the ground began to scream in pain. Everyone froze. It was as if time had stopped. Then the three Alkesh in the sky banked and swooped in. They opened fire, sending energy blasts raining down on the SG teams. Chaos erupted. Everyone dove for cover. Carter and Daniel shouted at Willow to take cover. Teal'c prepared to dash toward her, but before he could move, Willow looked up at the sky, fists clenched, and imagined the symbiotes inside the Alkesh pilots being crushed. Seconds later, the ships dropped from the sky and slammed into the ground, erupting in explosions that sent dust and debris flying. Many Jaffa had died, but Willow sensed one survivor, barely clinging to life. As the SG teams regrouped and began moving toward the Stargate, some carrying the injured O'Neill, Willow walked toward the trembling Jaffa. Carter turned to Daniel. "Get to the Stargate. I'll handle this." Willow stood over the dying Jaffa, who panted and sweat profusely, reaching weakly for a fallen staff weapon. Carter approached carefully. She thought Willow was just in shock from seeing Fraser die, but a chill ran down her spine, one she tried to dismiss as her imagination. Willow's hands were clenched into trembling fists. She stared down at the Jaffa with cold intensity. "Who sent you here?" she asked. "Willow," Carter whispered, alarmed. Carter wondered if her eyes were playing tricks on her, because she could have sworn there were streaks of black among Willow's red hair. "No, it has to be my imagination," she thought to herself. Willow continued, her dilated eyes fixed on the Jaffa. A trickle of blood ran from her nose. Tell me and you live. Carter focused on the side of Willow's face. She tried calling for her again, her voice louder this time. My Lord Anubis sent us. He will kill you all, the Jaffa shouted. Thank you, Willow whispered. The Jaffa screamed in pain, then lay still. Silence fell across the battlefield. Willow took a deep breath and turned toward Carter. Her eyes were still dilated, her breathing harsh. Suddenly she stumbled, and Carter caught her. Willow, what just happened? Carter asked softly. Willow didn't respond for a long moment. Then she whispered, They deserve to die, Major. They killed Dr. Fraser. They deserve nothing less. Willow, what happened to Janet? It was a tragedy, but because of you, we were able to bring her home. She died a hero, Carter said gently, guiding her toward the Stargate. Willow wiped her nose and stared at the blood with a look of surprise as Carter continued. Colonel O'Neill is alive. Barely, but he'll recover at the SGC. He'll want all of SG-1 with him when he wakes up. Willow felt her fury starting to fade, replaced by profound grief. Carter noticed the shift. Willow's eyes softened. Her hair had returned to normal. Carter now thought it was definitely her imagination. And then devastation washed over Willow's expression. Let's go home, Carter whispered. To be continued.